All right, hey everyone. Mark here. It's Friday. Let's get started right away, shall we? All right. So if you're new to the stream, welcome. Feel free to say hello in the chat. I'm streaming from the greater New York City area, also known as Northern New Jersey. The weather still stinks here. All right, let me get my charts going here. I'm going to turn these moving averages off. We don't need those. All right. By the way, real quick, so we're going to switch over to the NASDAQ. Let me just make this bigger. I just want to point out this is Bitcoin here. This is Bitcoin on the daily chart. You see this? You see this illustration? I drew that on Sunday. You see what's happening here? See what's happening? I drew that on Sunday. Check out my TradingView article that I wrote on Sunday. I saw the pattern. Anyway, all right. So let's get to the NASDAQ, shall we? So let me turn the Trade Scanner Pro on over here. That trade, by the way, on the Trade Scanner Pro, that daily trade actually went to the profit objective. The short, basically, went there. All right, so I'm going to change this over here to MNQ. MNQ1. Okay. And I'm going to switch this one over here, MNQ1. That's the micro NASDAQ futures contract. Now, because this environment has been so wild, I'm only going to be working with one contract. So for those of you that may be new, let me just explain what I'm doing here. There's a signal there, but I'm not, that's an hourly, I'm not jumping into anything here, right? We have to do our evaluation first. So I'm using the Trade Scanner Pro, which is my tool, all right, as you can see here, to help simplify the decision-making process. And the goal is to reach the profit objective for this Apex evaluation account. It's a prop firm account. It's a $50,000 account. Now, it's not really $50,000. It's really a $2,500 account. That's what it actually is, because that's the max loss limit. So that's what you have to gauge it by. So I bought this account, or I've subscribed to this account. I have to beat the evaluation. So the goal here is to see how long it takes to see if I can even beat this evaluation using the Trade Scanner Pro. Now, I've been at this now for like, over a week, and I'm like $300 minus the break-even point because I had a bad day on Friday, right? And I spent Monday and Wednesday making this money back. Now, I don't trade this account outside of the stream. Hey, Hussein, how are you? Thanks for stopping by. I don't trade this account outside of the stream, which means I stream every single trade that I take. So every trade that's reflected in this account has been witnessed by people watching the stream, and you can go back and watch the streams. So I'm not doing anything behind the scenes where, if I beat the evaluation behind the scenes and then oh, hey guys, I beat the evaluation and you can too if you buy my training program. I'm sure you've heard that before. So we're looking to see if I can realistically do this and to see if it's sustainable. So I'll talk more about the whole prop firm thing in a second here as I set up my charts and do my evaluation, because I don't want to sit here missing trades. So let me just change this over to the 1 minute, okay? Because that's the time frame. We're going to look basically between a 30-second and a 1 minute time frame. I'm willing to go higher to like 2 minutes up to 5 minutes, but usually I like to find trades on a 30-second or a 1 minute chart. Now, the NASDAQ has been very wild, as we know. So we have to respect that and mitigate the risk. I'll talk about those techniques here in a moment, but let's do our evaluation first. So here is the daily time frame. Okay, we're going to start with the daily time frame because I want to get a sense of some levels. Now, the primary components that I use when I do this type of strategy is pretty much the same components that I use for everything else that I do. It's trend and levels. That is it. One of the reasons why people fail, they just fail at this game, is because you're too consumed with irrelevant or misinformation, which is most of the information we consume, especially if you follow stuff on YouTube and TikTok and all those other nonsense platforms that just proliferate nonsense all day. You only need support and resistance levels and trend. And then you can use those two pieces of information to put the puzzle pieces together to get a sense of context, or what I like to call market intent. What does the market want to do? What is it telling us? And then we want to lean on that side to increase our probability of a profitable outcome. That is it. This is a probability game. And the probabilities that we're measuring are probabilities of human behavior, nothing else. All these renowned economists, I think this and I think that. Really, can you explain this tariff situation with the markets? Well, I don't know. Markets are just wild. No one has an answer because it's behavioral, it's emotional. And we can get a sense of what is likely to happen next, especially on smaller time frames, when you evaluate probabilities. That is it. The thing is, we don't have anything concrete. We don't have a nice little tool on our chart to show us a probability. So we have to guess. As retail traders, we trade with blindfolds on. We have no choice. We don't have the advantages of institutional traders or hedge funds or whatever, people with great resources and greater information that they can use against us. This is a game of competition, and whoever has the better information wins. We trade with a blindfold on, and that's done on purpose. We are meant to give our money to institutions and whoever, informed traders or politicians who have better information than us. That is what the markets are. It's a transfer of wealth mechanism. You have to, if you don't understand that, or if you refuse to accept that, quit this game now, because you will fail. I'm telling you. You will not win ever. You'll win randomly, but you're going to give your money back. Trust me, the game is engineered for us to lose. So that's the first thing you have to accept. Then you have to consider that this game is a game of probabilities and nothing else. So if you can't see the market from that perspective, again, especially on smaller time frames, you're just wasting your time, especially if you're trying to do like a prop firm evaluation. This is purely a statistical game. Right? And there are better ways to beat evals than what I'm doing here, but I'll explain, again, I've explained it in other streams, but when we have some time here, I'll explain why I'm doing it this way. So let's get some context, shall we? Instead of listening to me rant the whole time. And hold on, let me get my depression for the day here. Let me see how many people are watching me. Okay, I got 10 people on Twitter and 5 people on, well, YouTube is at least pretty consistent. It's the same 5 people. So I won't be too depressed about that. But come on, man, Twitter. All right, I'm not gonna get on that. That's my depression for the day. All right, let's take a look at what's going on here. So this is the daily time frame, right? We had this the other day when they paused the tariffs. What a surprise! Anyway, all I'm interested in is this, right? The levels. The general. We can argue that the big picture trend is bearish, right? The recent momentum is bearish, but our smaller picture may be changing. So for as far as day trades go, hey, how are you? All right, good to see you. As far as day trades go, we're only interested in this, the recent candles. Don't get mixed up with the big picture, right? The big picture in this case is not going to help us for day trades. I'm only interested in day trades. So I can say my momentum is basically turning because we have this big gigantic candle from, what was that? Wednesday? What was that? Yeah, I think that was Wednesday, right? We have our yesterday's low and yesterday's high. That's all I need to know. That's it. So I have some sort of support, some sort of resistance on the bigger picture. We have an inside bar developing right now. Yesterday was also an inside bar, which is basically a higher low. So this structure may be changing on the bigger picture. Okay, that's all I need to know. Now, let's go to an hourly chart. Hey, Kev, about the snow. What snow? There's no snow here. If there was snow, I'd really be depressed. What's snow? You must be talking another part of the country here. We got rain here, but no snow. Maybe you're in Minnesota or something. You know, it like snows there like the entire year. All right, anyway, that's a place to be depressed about. Anyway, so here's our, upstate. What are you in upstate New York? Is that where you are? It's probably the same as Minnesota. It's probably the same thing. I've been, I've been up there. I've been up to like, uh, some nice places up there. It's really nice there, like in the summer, up in the country, real nice up there. But it's winter otherwise. Besides like June, July, and August, it's winter otherwise. All right, anyway. Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, yeah. I've been up there in the farmland. Yeah. I've been up, it's about a 3 hour drive from where I am. 3 hour drive north. It was nice though. Okay. What are you like an hour away? I mean, I was up like 3 hours. Anyway, all right, so let's do some analysis here. Let's get some context. So this is we have a consolidation. First of all, this is the hourly chart, right? So I'm getting a sense of trend and levels. There's a trade, by the way, that's present here on the hourly chart. Interesting, right? I'm not taking that because I'm looking to trade the 1 minute chart. But this is an interesting swing trade situation. We have what looks to be a consolidation, a higher low consolidation. That's bullish. That's a bullish triangle developing there, right? We have a double bottom or basically a higher low situation right here. See that? That's bullish. So we have a compound situation. We have this, that's bullish. And we have this entire thing is a higher low relative to the low that we put in over here. This low, right? This area right here. So that's all bullish. Those are bullish signs. All right. So I'm leaning on the bullish side. That's giving me a sense of context. What side should I be working on? That's the first thing that I have to do when I'm using the Trade Scanner Pro. I can't just jump on a random signal. Like right now, I mean, this is good that it's a long on the hourly, but I'm not interested in jumping into that or anything unless I understand where the market intent is. Remember, the Trade Scanner Pro is not a forecasting tool. It is a confirmation tool. I still have to do forecasting. I still have to align myself with the market, right? That's what I'm doing here. As you can see, it doesn't take very long to do. I can do that in just a few minutes, right? So my general trend, I can argue, is bullish right now, right? The momentum is generally bullish, and I have higher lows. Okay, cool. Now, my next objective is levels. So I have some support right there, right? These are the minor levels, because you can see the blue lines on this chart. Let me turn the Trade Scanner off for a moment. The blue lines on this chart, these blue lines, that's yesterday's high and low, right? I want to note those. Now, intraday, right, I have this light blue area on the chart is my overnight or my pre-market. So there's some levels in there, but I'm not gonna highlight all of them. I just want my closest ones, right? So that's my support, and I have some resistance around here. That's it. That's all I need to know, right? And this is my overnight high over here. I mean, that's actually yesterday's high. It's not my overnight high. My consolidation high happens to be near the overnight high. Now, why should I put a line over by like here where I have it rather than the high, the actual pin bar high? Because there are multiple touches on this line, right? And that's what I'm interested in, multiple touches rather than the extreme. So this is nice. And the current hourly candle is bullish. Okay, cool. So that means I'm looking for longs on my 1 minute, right? So here's my 1 minute chart over here. And now this is where I can wait for signals. Nice bullish structure. That's what I should be seeing here. Now, we're kind of getting, maybe we get near this resistance, but because we have this bullish situation and my bigger picture is bullish, in this case, I'm going to suspect that we're going to break that resistance. So I'm not going to be in a hurry to go into counter trend mode. In fact, that's where I lose a lot of money, is in counter trend mode. So my goal here is to stick to trend following mode, which is the default mode of the Trade Scanner Pro. As you can see here, it says trend is bullish. Okay, so I want to work on that side, and our bigger picture information aligns with that. The Trade Scanner Pro can't see all the bigger picture stuff. So our idea should also coincide with what it sees. Now, I'm going to change this chart over here to a 30-second chart, right? Because I want to monitor multiple time frames, because a signal may pop up on an even smaller time frame, especially when the market's moving fast. Let's take a look at a 15-second chart here. Anything here? There's a signal there. See that? And we're almost at the objective. There's nothing I can do with that. And I prefer not to trade 15-second charts if I can avoid them. Look at that. It's going to touch the profit objective. See what happens when I talk too much? I miss good trades. Anyway, so when you get the Trade Scanner Pro, by the way, you got to make sure you turn on the trailing stop, the show previous trades, and the heads up. You got to make sure you turn those on. The one up here is counter trend. You want to leave that one off. Okay, that's a special situation. I'm not going to go over that now. By the way, if you want to learn how to use the Trade Scanner Pro or just get a quick tutorial, there is a link in the description on the YouTube channel. So you could click that link and I go over how it works and all that other stuff. So I don't have to explain all that here. Right. So this is my 15-second chart. I'm not doing anything with this right now. The trailing stop is at break even. So if I had taken this trade, if anything, it would be a zero risk trade. One thing I'm curious about is what is the actual risk? Great thing about the Trade Scanner Pro is it quantifies the risk. 56 points on a 15-second chart. That's a little high, but that's decent. All right. That's better than what we were seeing the other day. All right. So I'm on my 30-second chart and my 1-minute chart. The Trade Scanner Pro is a pullback tool. This is what I want to see. I want to see a pullback because I want to go long, right? So that's what we're going to be watching here. Now, one thing you have to keep an eye on with this thing, and where Stian is working on improving this, but you got to keep an eye on this thing up here, right? Where it says trend is bullish, trend is bearish. That's important because it changes a lot, especially on small time frames. It changes a lot. So we're looking for longs, right? And if this thing pulls back a little too far, that's going to change to bearish. And why that's a problem is if we're looking for longs and that changes to bearish, it's going to be looking for short signals at that point, which means we're not going to get any signals on the long side. So in that type of situation, that would call for counter trend mode, because counter trend, if that turns bearish, counter trend would be bullish. I know that's confusing, but we're working on a way to streamline that. Stian's been very, very busy. So he's working on the improvements. I don't know when I'm going to get the improvements, but we just have to be patient with that. I say that all the time, but he's a very loyal guy. He's a good guy. He just has, he works full time, and I have to respect that. Anyway, so we have our plan here. It's very simple. Look for longs. Now, with the Trade Scanner Pro, again, it helps to simplify the decision-making process. Okay? When we get our signal, we want to make sure that we're aligned with the bigger picture, right? With all the things that we've determined from our hourly chart. And then we just simply wait for our continuation signal, which would be a long signal. That's what I want to see here. Even if we get up to this resistance, and the reason why I'm treating that resistance that way is because the bigger picture is generally bullish and still in a very bullish location. So there's a lot of room to move higher in that bigger picture. So I suspect that the probability of breaking these resistances is higher because we've gotten so beaten up. We've been so oversold. Okay, now, another thing I have to mention here, in just a few minutes, I believe we have Michigan consumer sentiment. I believe, maybe if someone wants to double check on that number. I know earlier today we had the PPI, the Producer Price Index. We had the CPI yesterday, which came in lower than expected or whatever, right? They're saying less inflation or whatever. But I believe the PPI was at 8:30 today. I could be wrong on those timestamps. So maybe someone wants to double check the economic calendar or something. So I believe at 10 o'clock we have the Michigan consumer sentiment. It's either at 10 o'clock or 10:30. I believe it's 10 o'clock Eastern time. And that's just in a couple of minutes here. So I don't want to take a signal. I prefer not to take a signal going into that, because we're going to get a spike and we don't know which way it's going to spike. In fact, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we had a Michigan consumer sentiment number came out, and I was in a trade, and it spiked, and I happened to be on the right side. And I got out of that trade early, and I missed a huge trade, right? Like it sold off the whole day after that, and I missed it. I got the profit objective, and then it just kept going and going and going, and I missed a big trade, and that was sparked by a bad Michigan consumer sentiment number. So I believe we have that number here today, and that's at 10 o'clock. Yes, thank you, Henrik. Yes, so this is why I mentioned this on Monday, my Monday stream when I look at the economic calendar. This is why you need to be aware of this, especially if you trade intraday, because a number like that, we don't know the outcome, and it could be a surprise either way. And what you're likely to see is something like this on the chart, right? A spike. And I don't want to, if I'm long or short, that thing could stop me out literally in 1 second. So why take that chance? Now, of course, it may go your way. That's also a possibility, but it's a total gamble, right? So I'm not going to take that chance here. Let this thing come out. University of Michigan, right? A few minutes. Thanks, Hussein. Thanks, guys. This is why, especially when you're looking for day trades, why it's so important to be aware of these numbers. People that aren't paying attention to that, they get caught in that spike, and it's a random spike. So let's see how that plays out. And price action can get very erratic going into that, see? Now, my 30-second, of course, is going to be much more dramatic. My 30-second chart is going to be more dramatic than my 1-minute chart. So let's see how it goes. Now, I'm prepared to buy one contract or sell one contract. I'm not doing two contracts. I'll wait. When this market gets a little more tame, I'll go back to two contracts because, I want to mitigate the risk when in this type of environment, this wild environment. And that's keeping your size a little smaller. I noticed the risk has shrunken a little bit. The risk has gotten smaller. If you look at the Trade Scanner Pro and you look at the stop suggestions, that's basically a gauge of the risk, and it changes based on the market movement because it's all based on the average true range. So that we got our heads up on the 30-second. That's a nice tool to help you gauge, well, what kind of risk is the market showing right now? And if it's very high, like we saw earlier in the week, then you have to adjust for that, right? With smaller size or just stay out. If you're looking at a 30-second chart or a 1-minute chart and the risk on that chart is 200 points on the NASDAQ, that's a little high. It's a little on the ridiculous side. So either you say, you know what, that's too high for me, I stay out, or you take smaller positions to compensate for that risk. Now, again, my objective here is to beat the evaluation. Now we have some time. Here's our Michigan consumer sentiment price action. All right, no problem. Let's let this settle. Look at the 1 minute, right? Look at the 1-minute candle here. It's bearish. All right. Notice, have my trends changed on these charts? Let's see. I think they have. Look, trend is bearish. See that? See that? Got to pay attention to that because now, I'm interested in longs, but this thing's not going to call long signals. So in order for me to get a long signal, because I'm still, just because we get some bearish price action doesn't mean I'm going to start shorting this thing. I need to go into counter trend mode. That's why we have counter trend mode, because I'm interested in longs. So you got to keep an eye. This is a particular problem for very small time frames. Okay. See, now I'm getting the heads up for a counter trend signal. Counter trend meaning a long, because it's counter this momentum. But this general structure is I'm still going to work on the long side because it's going to take a little while for the hourly to change here. I'm going to switch this also to counter trend mode. And if these trends turn back to bullish, look, there's a short signal. Interesting. There's a short signal that was present on the 1 minute if I was in counter trend mode. Now, looking back, could I have reasonably taken that? Well, First of all, if I was going to do something like that, I would prefer to see it at the resistance, which we defined. This area here is going to be a tougher area to do it, number one, but it is a failed high situation. So that would have been an extremely aggressive trade. I'm not interested in that. So it looks nice after the fact, but I'm just not interested in that. Okay? Again, that's why we do our bigger picture evaluation. We would have to have been prepared for this and looking for this specifically. That's why you can't take signals for the sake of taking signals. Now, since I'm in counter trend mode, it's looking for longs, and that's what it's giving the heads up on. So this could be confusing, right? So I'm going to turn that off because we don't want that to be confusing. Now, I can only imagine for the beginner how confusing that could be. All right, actually, what I want to turn off is this, right? No, that trade's going to stay on there until it closes. All right, I'll leave it on there just so we can monitor it. But my 30-second is likely to give us that long. So there it is. All right, so let's give it a candle here. I don't like to jump in right away. Let's just give it a candle. All right, let's give it a try. All right, so I'm long. 1 micro lot based on the 30-second, okay? Now, we have a profit objective here. What's the risk on this? 87 points. Is that right? 87 points. Man, that's a lot for a 30-second chart. That is a lot. I should be more like 50 points. But as we saw, the 50 points is like on a 15-second chart. So look, that's the risk. So I either stay out or I stay smaller, right? So I can't get any smaller than 1 micro lot. So that's it. If I lose 87 points, I mean, that's going to be like $170, all right, which is going to suck, but it's better than losing 300. Now, if I'm right, if I don't get stopped out, if I'm right and I get to the profit objective, I'm going to make 131 points, which is nice. That's a decent profit objective for such a small time frame. I'll take it. Now you can argue. Now, all right. So the Trade Scanner Pro will be. You can't be confused by it here, right? I'm going to turn it off over here because that can be confusing. Because that one is basically monitoring a short, but I went long. It's not about which one is right. It's about what side of the market I want to be aligned with. The short may work out, but the thing is that was a risky, high-risk setup, a high-risk trade. You can't get confused by that. So the best way to do that is you first do your analysis, you come up with your side, and you stay on that side until the market changes and proves otherwise. Then you use the Trade Scanner Pro to confirm. That's how this works, not the other way around. And as a beginner, like I understand, you want certainty, so you want the Trade Scanner Pro to tell you what to do for everything, but you can't. It doesn't work that way. And that's because we can't, with the information that's available to us, like on a charting platform like this, we can't get the right information to build such a tool. Because you have to do that, you need certain things that are not easily available with the type of information, the type of data that is available on such a platform. So, I don't go out and telling people, oh, I got the magical tool. It's going to tell you the future, right? It's called the crystal ball tool. That's why, but there's plenty of people that give you that idea. Oh, look at this. I like this. Keep it going. Keep it going. Keep it going. We get that profit objective. It's bangy time. I'm going to bang it out. I like it. Keep it going. I shouldn't talk too much because it'll hear me, and then it'll turn around. Be like, wait a minute, this guy can't make money. We can't let this guy win. So I'm gonna sell it up here. In fact, let's see, where are we? 619 is the price. 620 is the price. Because I was gonna basically just put a limit order in the market, but you know what? I don't have to. I could just bang. Here we go. Can we go a little further? Oh, we touched it. Can we go a little further? I might be asking for too much. We're hesitating. All right, goodbye. Goodbye. Out. Done with you. That was a nice trade. So let's take a look at the account here. I made in that trade $243. Okay, I'll take it. $243. So let's see. Where am I with the account? $49.98. It took me a week to, on Fridays when I got beat up for 800 and whatever dollars, it took me a week to make the money back. Okay? A week. Because that was Friday. That was a week ago. Remember, I only trade this account 3 days a week. I don't trade this account every day because I only stream 3 days a week, right? So, well, it's a good thing I took the money at the profit objective. But I mean, that's, again, this is a 30-second chart. It's going to be noisy. I'm being very conservative. My trailing stop is now active. It's reducing my risk, but this thing may pull all the way back. I just made what? How many points was that? Because I wasn't able to get the exact profit objective. It was just slightly below. So I got around like 120 points. Okay. 120 NASDAQ points. That's pretty decent for just a few minutes. How long was I in that trade for? A few minutes? Not even. Can I see that? Let's see. I should be able to see that. Five, 4 minutes I was in that trade. Okay? 4 minutes. And I was able to get away with 120 points. All right, not bad. Now, again, remember all that stuff about not being confused? Do you see why I mentioned all that? Because the one side was the short side. Now, look, by the way, I was in counter trend mode. This thing turned back into trend mode, so I got to turn it off. I got to turn counter trend mode off. I'm not going to take any more trades. I'm just going to talk about a couple of important things here. All right, so let's turn counter trend off. Counter trend mode is off. Right now, it's going to be looking for long. The trade vanished because I'm back in trend mode because I'm following this thing up here. You see that? Do you see how I used counter trend mode in that situation? Can anyone sum that up for me? I want to see if you guys understand what just occurred here. Can you sum that up? Because that, for a beginner, I can understand how this could be confusing. And that's why I do these streams, so you can see me demonstrate this in real time, right? There was nothing behind the scenes there. You saw me take the trade. You saw the rationale I came up with. You saw how I switched it to counter trend mode to capture that long because this was a pullback and I was still working on the long side because my bigger picture told me so. So can anyone kind of sum that up for me? Don't be shy. I want to see if you guys are paying attention. That was a great example right there. Let me see what's going on over here on Twitter. Man. Yeah. So you YouTube guys, do me a favor. All 5 of you. Can you press the like button and subscribe and like the channel and stuff here? Let me put my little graphic up here. Yeah, there you go. Do me a favor. And Twitter people, you know what, Twitter? I'm going to put a link on my thing over there so that you can come over here easier. I know I got to change the link. I'm not a big social guy. You know what I mean? I'm not like one of these Instagram guys. Hold on. Let me see what the chat says over here. All right, cool. But can anyone just sum this up for me real quick? Just write me like a little paragraph, like a few words, what you just occurred here. Or how about this? Are you confused? Are you confused by what just happened? Let me know. Tell me. Tell me in the chat. Because this is how things work in a real environment. This is how you have to be flexible and you have to adjust. So let's just kind of recap this, right? And let me just go back to this over here. So let's recap. And let me turn my Trade Scanner Pro over here because I put counter trend mode on. Let's go back to trend mode because that's what we want to be in. Now, notice how this is going to be changing a lot because the market's all over the place, right? See, it's bearish again. So I'll leave one in counter trend mode and I'll leave the other one in trend mode. Okay. Now, so just to recap real quick, The first step was what? I found the trend and I looked at the levels. Like I always tell people every time, it's the first, before you use a Trade Scanner Pro, you have to have your perspective. Hussein says, I think it's confusing. Well, yeah, if you're a beginner, this is going to be very confusing. All right, so I want to try to address that, and I want to see if I can explain that in a way that promotes clarity. And then I want to talk about the prop firm situation because there's a lot of information there too. That well, counter trend mode, you follow the larger picture trend. Nugs, that's a good way to put it. Okay, this is what Nugs says. Nugs is from Minnesota, by the way. I was picking on Minnesota before. He's from Minnesota. Am I right, Nugs? You get like lousy weather there all day long. Anyway, so for the first step that I took was I looked at the bigger picture. We looked at the hourly chart. I looked at support and resistance levels. I looked at general trend structure, right? Higher lows, higher highs. And I was noting the higher lows. So that told me that I wanted to work on the bullish side. Sun is out today. Oh, nice. You probably rarely get that over there. All right. No, I'm just picking on you. But New Jersey weather, I'm sorry, is probably better than Minnesota. I apologize for that. So, and I'm no fan of New Jersey weather. So let's go back to this. So the first thing we took is the trend and momentum, the trend and the levels. And that tells me what side I should be using the Trade Scanner Pro on, because the Trade Scanner Pro is a confirmation tool. That's its purpose. So I want to confirm market behavior, and the Trade Scanner Pro is looking for pullbacks. So if I'm going to look for a pullback and my bigger picture is bullish, then I want to work on the long side. Now, I got that information from my hourly chart. Then I go to my 1 minute chart because that's where I'm looking for trades on my 1 minute. Now, I have my 1 minute and my 30-second charts up on my screen here because I'm monitoring both time frames. We have a better way planned to do that, but right now, this is the way I have to do it. In fact, I could set up like 3 charts or 4 charts so I could monitor like 1 minute, 30-second, 2 minute, 5 minute, instead of switching around. I can do something like that, right? Like if I switch this over to the 5 minute, for example, there may be a signal there. There's nothing there right now. But anyway, this is where now I want to wait for the confirmation. And I want to see, is this confirmation occurring at a support and resistance level that I noted on my bigger picture? Yes or no, right? That's where I'm going to be able to answer those questions. But the thing is, when I'm on my smaller time frame, we have to note what the Trade Scanner Pro sees. And that is where we see this little box up here. It says trend is bullish or trend is bearish. That's going to change very often. You have to be very on top of that, right? So you have to stay in line with your context. Our context is bullish. When this turns bearish on a 30-second chart, you have to realize a 30-second time frame does not change the bigger picture, which is the hourly chart. It takes a big change on the 30-second to change that hourly chart. So if this turns bearish, I need to be in counter trend mode if my goal is to work on the bullish side. Is that clear? I don't know if that clarifies things a bit. If our bigger picture that we've determined is bullish, then I want to align with that side. And if this smaller time frame turns bearish, then I'm not aligned. So in order to align, I go into counter trend mode. That's one way to go about it. Now, if I'm aligned, which would be nice, see how it's changing? It was just bullish for a second. If it's all aligned, great. If this is bullish and my bigger picture is bullish, great. All I have to do is wait for signals. But if this thing starts getting funky and it keeps changing, then I have to change with it. So that's why I recommend it's good to paper trade with this. You have to get that sense of context first. This is a great training tool to get your mindset to be more in line with the market. Basically, it helps you to become a good market listener. And that is what I am. I listen to the market. I don't assert my own ideas. The market tells me, I listen, I follow. That's what I do. I don't think I know better. The market will always know more because the market is an aggregate of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people putting their money in, voting with their trades, right? With their money. So that is going to have, that crowd behavior is going to have an intent. I want to listen for that. I want to know what it is. It's like tracking footsteps, I want to know what that is. And then I want to align with it, because that's when probabilities are going to be more on my side. That's what I'm doing. Now, and it's not always trend following. It could be that we're interested in a counter trend situation, like we're trying to catch a reversal, but reversals are a lot harder. Support or resistance, they're harder and they're much trickier to play. And that's when I usually get stopped out a lot, when I try to play those reversals. All right. Now look, there's a signal here. It's a long signal. I'm not taking any more trades. I'm done. If I could get my trade in one trade, if I could get my profit in one, I'm done. That's it. Walk away. Okay. Especially for this prop firm evaluation. So you guys follow that. We'll watch this signal. Let's see how it plays out. Remember, I'm still in counter trend mode. I got my bullish signal. This says bearish up here. I got my bullish signal. All right. This market's basically range bound anyway. It's not really doing anything. And also notice this, the signal came and right away it went against it. See, it's going straight to the stop. See that? That's why you can't take every signal. When I took this signal back here, what was the first thing I had done? I waited for the next candle after the signal till he showed me a little bit of green, something. I was waiting to see if it would give me red right away. If it gives red right away, step aside. Okay? Like here, that would have been a stop out, but I'm not in the trade because I have no more plans to take trades. So you have to realize these things. Anyway, so let me get into the prop firm situation real quick, because there's a couple of points I want to make about that. We'll monitor anything on our 1 minute over here. Let me turn this thing back on. Hold on a second. Trend is bearish. All right. So that stop, that trade, that counter trend trade, the short from earlier, I think that was a profitable trade. Anyway, this one from up here. So this is now looking for longs too. And now we're getting near the overnight low or whatever, the yesterday's low. So this is a great spot to be looking for longs if you'd be looking for longs. And if you can get the confirmation there, that would be a much better trade, especially on the 1 minute chart, because that carries a little more weight. All right. So let me just address a few things with the prop firm situation real quick, because when you're dealing with prop firms, it's not the same as when you're dealing with your real money, a real account. There's a very good value proposition that comes with working with a prop firm account, and that is you can trade with full confidence and full size and not have to blow real money. So there's a lot of advantages to that. Now, of course, there are pros and cons to everything. Some of the cons with prop firms is when it comes time to get a payout, they put like 10 million obstacles in front of you because they don't want to pay you. Right? So you have to understand that comes with the game. But man, let me tell you, when you can throw around 5 mini lots, not micros, mini lots with full confidence, and if you're wrong, you blow $2,500 in a second, it's like, all right, I just blew the eval fee, which is $30 or $40 or $50 or whatever, not $2,500 in a minute. So it really helps you be more confident, more objective. But the other thing with the prop firm is, people are, one of the reasons why I believe people fail so often, and there's so many failures, and why these prop firms make so much money off of failing traders, is because traders are in a hurry. The system that I'm employing here is, the goal is to be sustainable, so that if I can beat the prop firm, right? So I have three more $1,000 I have to make, right? I made $800 and something back. I got to make $3,000 now to beat the prop firm. But I'm trying to do this in a sustainable way, because if I employ a strategy that allows me to beat the prop firm, the eval, in like a day or 2 or 3, which is very possible, the thing is, that's going to be unsustainable, because you have to go all in and you basically have to hope you're right. And there are techniques that you can utilize that will do that. And yeah, sure, we could beat the prop firm in a couple of days. But if I don't have a sustainable system after that, then I'm just wasting my time in the payout phase, because if I try using that unsustainable system, I'm going to blow that account. And by the way, when you do beat an eval, and it doesn't matter, all the prop firms are pretty much the same when it comes to this. When you do beat them, you have to pay a one-time setup fee, which is typically $140, right? Whether it's Apex, whether it's Top Step, whoever it is, they typically have a setup fee. And so that's, you beat the eval, right? And now you have to pay this other fee to get to the payout phase. So if you have if you pay that, you pay $140 plus you paid the subscription, right? You paid the fee for the eval, which could be $50, $100, whatever. So now you're in for maybe almost $200. You get to the payout phase and then you blow that one because you're using an unsustainable system. What is the point? What good is it? Then you got to start over again. And you got to start with the eval over again. So I want to see if we can beat the evaluation in a sustainable way, which means it's going to take time. I'm not using big size. This trade that I just had would have been huge, right? That would have been a $400 or $500 trade. Would have been nice instead of 250 or whatever. It would have been double if I had 2 lots on, 2 micro lots. But I'm not taking 2 micro lots in this environment. I've made that decision before I even started here because of the general environment, right? I'm mitigating my risk. So do you understand that's like what I'm doing here? Look at this trade. See how that one works. In a very high probability area for longs. So do you guys understand that about the prop firm situation? So I want to see if I can demonstrate. Every trade here is documented. I want to see if I could demonstrate beating an eval, reaching the $3,000 objective, because then we can use our system to take payouts. That's the whole idea. Get to the payout phase, and then this money that I'm making here, I can withdraw. That's what makes this whole thing meaningful. That is why I'm streaming this rather than putting money into, a couple of $1,000s into a futures account and then trying to trade this with real money. By the way, a couple of $1,000s is not enough to day trade NASDAQ futures. The margin requirements are like $3,000 for one contract right now, because all the brokers raised their margin requirements because they because of the wild moves. So I would have to I'd have to have like a 10K account basically to comfortably trade 2 micro lots. $10,000 of real money in an account. Whereas why would I not just use a prop firm, pay $30 for an eval, right? Beat the eval, and now I can take payouts on basically putting no money into the market, no money into an account. That makes a lot of sense, and I've done a lot of research with the prop firm world, and so I know the pros, I know the cons. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, they're the best thing in the world. They have their problems, we'll talk about those too. But I'm just explaining this because that is the whole point of these streams. That's why I sit here for an hour 3 days a week. I could be working in the real market right now on a real account instead of doing this. Right? Because obviously I'm not making any money here. People aren't signing up for my Trade Scanner Pro. So this is not exactly the best use of my time. Okay? But I'm doing this because I think it's helpful for people. And I think, if I can demonstrate this and we're successful at beating the eval, then I think this would be a great series to go back and look at all the trades and all that stuff. And I think there'll be a lot of value at that time. So it's an investment in time. You guys following me so far? All right, so that's really what I want to say about that. I know it may be boring, but it's important to understand the whole purpose of the prop firm industry and where it can be beneficial to you and where it can be not beneficial, right? Where it could be a liability. If you're a beginner and you're in a hurry, it's not a good idea. You're just going to throw all kinds of money out the window. You have to give this some time. You have to practice. You have to go in with a sustainable system. Their parameters are set up in such a way that even many profitable systems will not work within their risk parameters because they're too tight. So the Trade Scanner Pro is nice because everything is nicely defined, right? So using stops that are nicely defined for you like this really adds a lot of certainty to your situation and gives you a nice structure, so it simplifies the decision-making process. So I think it's a helpful tool for such tight parameters. All right. Now, with all that said, I am not an affiliate for any of these prop firms. I'm looking to get an affiliate thing going, but I don't have anything like that going right now. So if you sign up for one, I really can't say anything about it or whatever, or I can give you maybe a less biased opinion because I'm not an affiliate. So I have no one to push. You understand? But I would say if you're like new and you're interested in this, don't sign up. There's no reason to be signing up right away anyway. Practice, right? Go on your TradingView account, practice first. Make sure you have a solid decision-making process first. Otherwise, you're just wasting your money. Anyway, it's not a lot of money, but you're still wasting your money and you're wasting your time. Practice. Get some experience first. Now, if you're more experienced, then you just have to make sure that you have a system that's going to be sustainable. And that's what we're demonstrating here. That's what I'm trying to demonstrate here. So if you follow my rationale and you're using the Trade Scanner Pro, I think you have a better chance. But we'll find out, because now that I've broken even, now I have $3,000 more I have to make. Okay. So if you think about it, I went from -8 whatever back to zero in a week, and that's only working every other day, not working every day. All right. Any questions about that while we watch these trades almost touch their stops? Any questions? I don't see anything in the chat. Any questions, you guys? Don't be shy. Do you guys have interest in the prop firm stuff? I hope you do, because that's what I'm streaming about. That's the whole point of this. I mean, you could use this with a real account. You can do this with a real account. It's just there are many benefits to doing this on a prop firm with a prop firm account, especially for day trades. I mean, that's the whole point. Okay, cool. All right. So, again, give the Trade Scanner Pro a try if you haven't, because you could learn a lot. I mean, look at this. In this situation right here, if I had taken this trade, it hasn't stopped out yet, right? And this gives me at least some clarity. It gives me some definition to go by. Maybe it stops out, but I have a defined risk and I have a defined profit objective. And thanks to that, I was able to get away with that profit because I had a well-defined profit objective. If I had not had that profit objective, I wouldn't have most likely gotten out at that price. I would have, I got a winner, I'm going to hold on to it. And then I would have given the whole thing back. Right? So that's the whole purpose of this tool. So you see the link on the screen here. Give it a try. 14 days, you can cancel anytime. And just make sure you cancel it before you get billed, because I'm not going to give you refunds and all that stuff. I get too many people trying to take advantage of me with that. So you have 14 days. It's easy to cancel. It's very easy. And you're all set if you don't like it. Okay. But watch my streams. By the way, look what happened here on the 1 minute. This is a reason when you have a situation like this that almost touches a stop, and then it goes back up to the entry price like that. That's like another trade signal. It's another reason that you can justify that as another entry to get in. Practice on paper. Make sure you measure your stop, right? Look at that risk. Make sure you know what that is. And you have a lot of information there to work with. All right. So I don't see any questions, you guys. As you guys know, here, let me press my little button over here. As you guys know, I stream this 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the market open. And I stream also on Mondays at 3 p.m. Eastern time, where I do my market evaluation. By the way, I'm going to update my queues. I have a trade in the queues. Where are the queues? They should be doing okay, right? Let's take a quick look. Where are the queues? What's the price in the queues? 444. Come on, man. this thing sucks. Well, it's better than 4 even. I was at 400. We were at 400 on Monday or whatever it was. 449. So yeah, I on Thursday, I made a video. I put out a video. I streamed it. I talked about how I was buying the bottom of the NASDAQ, and I bought 100 shares of the Qs. I accumulated 100 shares of the Qs. Let me just share this real quick, then I'm going to sign off, because this is a learning thing, right? So I accumulated 100 shares of the Qs. My average price was basically 464. It came out as 464. It was 463, but then I bought 10 more shares. I had 90 shares, and I bought 10 more shares at like 460 or something like that, or 459. And my average price was like 464. I don't know why it came out that way, but that was my average price. That was on Wednesday, right? After that announcement. So my position went from minus $6,000, which is what it was at the bottom, at the low, to almost break even in an hour. In 1 hour. Now, what I had done in that situation, which was part of my plan, was I sold a call against those 100 shares. A 461 call, 1 day out. I collected $680 for that. That call yesterday was worthless because the market pulled back. Now, when we closed on Wednesday, the Qs closed at 468. So if I had sold the same day call, I would have been assigned, my shares would have been assigned, I would have made a small profit, right? My shares have been called away. I would have made a profit of like maybe 400 and something dollars, which, not really worth the risk that I took, but at least it was a profit considering how much pain I was taking. But I sold 1 day out in case we had a pullback. Well, we had a pullback. We closed yesterday below 461. I kept the $680 and my 100 shares. So my cost basis is now lower. It's 457. So I'm prepared to sell another call. But I want to see, I believe the market's more stable now. And I'm confident that we can get back up into the 460s, in which I will sell another call and collect another premium. My goal when I sell those covered calls, my goal is to be assigned. I want them to take the stock away, and I'm getting paid for it, right? So it sounds nice after the fact, like, oh, that's a nice way to make money. But I took a lot of risk with that accumulating those 100 shares. The NASDAQ was, as you saw what it was, doing a few, before that announcement of the pause of the tariffs, right? I was just betting on a probability, and I started buying a little too early. But hey, it was an unusual situation. If I had waited like a day, I would have had much better prices, and that position would have been way more profitable. So right now, the position is minus like $1,000, but I collected. Remember, I collected $680 for nothing, for absolutely nothing. I collected that money, and it only takes you 1 minute to sell the call, right? Either way, I keep that money. So if the position got called away, I still keep that premium. That's a great thing about options. So my goal, it's just a quick update for those that are following that. My goal is we push into the 460s. I'm selling another call. I'm getting paid for them to take my stock away. To sell my stock, which I'm going to sell anyway, I get paid for it, right? So it's good to know options. Anyway, all right, you guys, look at that. Profit objective reached. And trailing stop, this risk is zero risk, right? That's above the entry price. And notice where this came from, the support level, right? That's an ideal counter trend trade situation. See that? That line on the chart, we had that drawn there right from the beginning. That was yesterday's low. What a surprise, as Jerry Seinfeld would say. All right, you guys, any questions? So I gave you my Qs update as well as a little bonus. But I'm probably going to make another thing about that. The position is still open, so I'll update that really in more detail when I close the position. All right, and you can watch my video on my YouTube channel that I made specifically about when I was accumulating those shares. All before in fact, as I explained all that, I wasn't in that video. It wasn't like, oh, I bought all these great prices. I bought at much worse prices, and you had an opportunity to get much better prices than me when I explained that. Because it wasn't like I bought it and then it was up in my favor, and then I said, oh, by the way, I got these great prices. No, when I explained it, it was against me. So you actually had an opportunity to get better prices. All right, you guys. So I'll leave you with that. If you have any questions, you know where to find me, mark@markbmarkets.com, or you could send me a message on TradingView or whatever. I'd be happy to answer. If you ever get a message from me, it's unsolicited. It's most likely a scammer. Please don't be scammed. All right, you guys. So oh, thanks. Cool. I appreciate that. Thank you. He likes the Trade Scanner Pro. Thank you. Great. And I'm glad you like the streams. I'm glad you get value out of it. All right. So guys, enjoy the rest of your day. Well, I'll see you next week, right? We'll do this again and we'll see what we can do. Enjoy the rest of your day, or the rest of your evening, wherever you are in the world. And thank you very much for watching.